Hi, Miss Jackson.
Hi, David. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
We're gonna get started soon, okay?
Yeah, no worries. Should I go off video? I guess my kids.
You don't have to. No, no, no. You don't have
Mhm.
to.
I got my little guy here. Sorry.
Hey. Oh, and my face is covered. Hi, little one. What's your name?
What? Miller.
Miller. Nice to meet you. I'm Crystal.
Hi, Crystal.
All right, buddy, watch your head. Go, Mills. Mills, go. Mills. Mills.
Piggy.
Mills. All right, I'll go off video, okay? When people come on, I'll show my face. They know I'm a human, not a robot.
Hi, David.
Hi, how are you?
I'm okay. I'm driving back from Albany.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna show my face when I start talking just so people know I'm not an AI robot, and then I'll jump off
Right.
because my little boys are here, so I don't want to have them pull me
No
aside.
problem. Yeah, and I'm driving, so it's not the best time for me
No
to be
worries.
talking soon. But
I'll be doing
it's
talking, I
what it
promise.
is.
Oh, and by the way, I meant to tell you, someone had reached out. Um, this is Stevens' office, Assemblywoman Stevens.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that I have a meeting
Oh,
with them.
council member.
Yes, council member. I have a meeting. I want to say maybe next week
Okay.
or 2 weeks.
Do we have an agenda? Because I don't recall seeing my team.
Hey,
Yeah,
Ann, yeah, the
Crystal sent one out.
everything for the calendar, I'll send it in the chat right now.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining. We're gonna give it 5 more minutes and then we'll get started. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining. We're gonna get started soon. Just giving everyone a couple of minutes to join us. We have Natasha, our legislative director, dropping information in the chat. And thank you for joining us tonight.
Evening, everyone. It's Assemblymember Jackson. If you want, feel free to drop your name and where you're from in the chat as well. So if you're representing from either Concourse Village or one of the schools in the neighborhood, MAR, feel free to share in the chat. I see a few people's names as District 79. Can we change it to identify everyone?
We'll
Just
get
give it one more
started
minute.
in a minute. Oh.
Effie, is it possible to change your name?
It wouldn't allow me to even put my name on there. It just automatically did that. I didn't have an option. I'm gonna try to see if I could do it. I apologize, but signing
No, no
in.
worries.
Anyway. Sorry about that.
Okay.
All right, so good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight for tonight's town hall. My name is Crystal Diaz, Constituent Services Director for New York State Assembly Member Chantel Jackson. I'm gonna give the floor to the member to welcome everyone.
Thank you, Crystal. Thank you, everyone, for jumping on this virtual meeting. And this is a really important topic. I think we're all going to learn a lot today. Assemblymember Jackson here. I'm driving back from Albany, so I'm going to do my best to not be on the, speaking as much and allowing the professionals to lead this conversation. But I thought it was really important that we have the conversation around energy and fuel cells and battery storage, all those things that we are now seeing in our district, but not fully understanding what it is and how that will benefit us. Thank you to David for being here. Thank you to Benny and to all the constituents. I think this is going to be a great space for us to learn. Feel free to, Crystal will definitely tell us how this meeting will run, but feel free to throw any questions in the chat.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So right now we're gonna welcome everyone for joining us. CB4, David from Daruga and his staff, Effie from DEP, Benny from Con Ed, and our elected officials who have also joined us. And also thank you to our constituents for joining us as well. So first is going to be David doing the presentations, letting everyone know about the fuel cell, and he's going to explain it, go more into depth with that. And then around 6:15, we'll be taking questions. We're limiting it to 5 questions only, so please bear with us. Any questions, add them to the chat. Our Legislative Director, Natasha, would be sharing it with us, and we'll get back to you. David, if you want to start introducing yourself.
Yeah, sure.
More than welcome to.
So hello, everybody. For those who don't know me or we've not spoken with, my name is David Matt. I am the owner of the property, 751 Concourse Village West, as well as the owner of the project, which we're currently installing. I had a Zoom call in February with Leonardo and some of the members. So if I have met you, nice to meet you, and I see you again. And again, as I mentioned, we are very transparent and open to meet anytime with Community Board 4 or anyone for that matter. I did want to include on this call my business partner, Ori Musayev, who's there. I don't know if Ori, if you want to just show your face and give a quick wave. Ori is there. Michael Scarano is my general contractor. Mike, he's waving as well. And Susan Cabo, who I see. I don't know if Susan, if you could maybe turn the video on, just a quick wave. So Mike is my general contractor. If you've seen him on site, that's the gentleman. Now you have a face with the name. And Susan is a hired consulting firm through Atkins Realis, and they are a firm who oversee the compliance of all our work to make sure myself, My partner and Michael meet with all compliance in their city and state. So Susan, I don't know if you can, did you?
Hello, I'm
Oh, there you are.
Susan. Yeah,
Okay.
nice to
So we
meet
got
you.
everyone. So that's our team today. My little boys are going to be running in a minute, so I may just turn my video off shortly, but I'll keep it on for the time being. And if you do see them, just, they're boys. It's okay. Anyway, so what I want to do today is I want to take time to explain to you what we're doing and then obviously answer any questions, as Crystal mentioned. So the first thing is I want to make very clear, we are not installing a battery. Again, we are not installing a battery. I know it once was spoken about. There is no battery, never will be a battery, never was a battery. That's first thing. What we're doing is installing what's known as a fuel cell. A fuel cell is a non-combustion technology which takes natural gas and converts it into electricity, leaving behind steam, which is essentially water vapor. That's the byproduct. The byproduct being water, it's environmentally friendly power source. It's approved on New York State law as clean energy, similar to solar. Okay, so there's no combustion. It's a key word. I want to highlight that because there's no flame. Never ever during our entire process will it ever be a flame. Okay, so when the maintenance occurs throughout the day or the year, we turn the switch, the system shut off, and the gas that comes from the street is stopped. Nothing sits on site. There's no storage, there's no flame, there's nothing. I want to make that very clear. Second, I've heard questions about environmental concerns, asthma. So first, I'm an asthmatic, so I know about these claims. Fuel cells do not combust. There's no flame, which means there's no harmful emissions. We're not burning anything. Unlike, as an example, a boiler. If you think about Concourse Village as an example, they have several boilers under the village. They burn about 1.7 million therms of gas and about 114,000 gallons of number 2 oil a year. Those toxins that are being emitted through your flue stack are 10 times more toxic than what we actually emit. Okay, so I want to make very clear, there is no concern of emission. We have 0 SOx, and our NOx and CO2 levels are negligible under New York State, where you, as in Concourse Village, produce almost 127 tons of NOx a year and 10,000 tons of CO2 through your flue stack because you're burning an oil and a gas, where we do neither. Safety concerns I heard questions about. The first thing is, again, there's no flame, right? So there's never a fear of an explosion because there is no flame. The federal government in the United States has something called Project Moonshot. Project Moonshot is the deployment of fuel cells throughout NASA's space shuttles. So NASA space shuttles that go up to the moon and around everywhere else have fuel cells on those shuttles. The US Navy has fuel cells inside submarines. They've been using fuel cells since 1960. They've been around for that long, okay? They're the cleanest source of power generation on the market today, and they're the most efficient, which is why both the Navy and NASA use them. Again, they don't burn. So you talk about boilers. Boilers are flammable. They're burning gas, they're burning oil. There's more likelihood of an incident, God forbid, with a boiler than there would be a fuel cell. Not to mention boilers, as an example, if they're not properly monitored and maintained, they become even more harmful with toxins, right? So that flue stack you see is where the emissions come out. The same project that we're installing in our property is sitting next to a hospital in Brooklyn, next to SUNY Downstate Medical Center. A hospital has a fuel cell. So the fear of something happening, if it's next to a hospital, you have to assume there's no real danger. So not only is it sitting next to a hospital, it's in 50 feet of an entire residential neighborhood. You could go there, I could send you the address. People walk, they talk, they make phone calls next to it. There's no concern, okay? Even more so, and what
Hey,
recently
David.
just, oh,
I'm so sorry to jump in. I didn't want to interrupt, but I forgot to mention our Senator Serrano is on as well. So please welcome him.
how are you, Senator?
Very good. Thank you for explaining all this. I'm listening intently, but I'll let you continue.
Okay, thank you. Apologies. I also want to mention that New York City MTA, they just announced the deployment of their first 2 hydrogen fuel cell city buses. And these buses actually run out of the Gun Hill Depot in the Bronx. These are fuel cells sitting on a bus that actually convert hydrogen to electricity. And you talk about hydrogen versus natural gas. Hydrogen is considered more flammable than natural gas. And these are on city buses that we'll all be taking soon because obviously the efficiency and safety and long range that these fuel cells do offer. So that's when it comes to, the fear of it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that
Yeah, can you
questions
just
I
speak to why it even exists, like why we have it, on the Con Edison piece?
Well, oh, so okay. So the reason for fuel cells and what we do is something called power generation. So we produce electricity for the grid. And the reason for that is because New York State currently is having a shortfall of power, meaning more businesses come to your area. More residences and homeowners are using electricity in the summertime in the peak heat days, which puts stress on the grid. That stress results in brownouts and blackouts. So by us putting power onto the grid, relieves that stress. It avoids brownouts and blackouts. NYISO, which stands for the New York Independent System Operator, they oversee the entire power grid in New York State. They came out with a report in November. It's their reliability report. They claimed, and I could share this report, that Con Edison's particularly is going to be at a shortfall of 350 megawatts of power this summer. So within days. So what we're doing, and we're doing this throughout the city, is deploying more power generation in areas that need it. So you could produce more power, bring more businesses, you could consume more power by us deploying it. So there is a real need for the power generation, okay? The biggest benefit of us deploying power is something called community distributed generation. So what happens is every kilowatt hour or piece of, call it, electricity that we put onto the grid, in turn, we get paid for that. Con Edison pays us. However, the only way they'll pay us is if we give 10% of that money to any individual customer in Con Ed's territory, which means this. We could put kilowatt hours onto the grid, and I could give that 10% that I would have kept to somebody in Westchester County, someone down in Staten Island, anywhere. What we've done is we've now created a custom exclusive program for Community Board 4. We have $2 million, up to $2 million every year for the next 25 years worth free credits. Those credits are going to be applied to any customer who pays a Con Ed bill in Community Board 4 for the next 25 years for free. We don't do the billing. It's all done by Con Ed. If there's a Con Ed rep on the phone who knows that, they can explain that as well. It's a free program. So we are putting power onto your grid. It's a non-combustion engine. There's no harmful emissions, and you're saving up to $2 million a year that could be spread throughout local businesses, schools, Concourse Village, residences, whomever. As long as you pay a Con Ed bill, you get these credits. It's free for the next 25 years. You come and go. There's no termination, fully administered by Con Edison. So I want to make that super clear because that's obviously the most exciting piece of why we're doing this. So I could kind of stop there and see if there's any specific questions.
Can we have Benny? Benny, were you prepared to speak?
I can provide a few of my thoughts and
Okay.
kind of this
Thank you,
position.
David.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, David, and thank you, Assemblymember Jackson, for the opportunity. Just want to introduce myself to folks that don't know me. I'm the corporate affairs manager with Con Edison, Orange catchment area. I work with a team of corporate affairs managers that oversee the Bronx. So anything that's Bronx specific, you can feel free to reach out to us. I work with community stakeholders, elected officials, businesses, non-for-profits, folks that need, that extra ear, that extra specialized attention. So I want to jump in and just kind of mention first and try to be very clear that our role with David and the fuel cell is there's a thin line, and I like to describe it as in the same way that if somebody erects a new building or is building a house or needs additional service, that's more or less how we're working with David in terms of providing energy. And I'm talking about gas and I'm talking about electricity. There is a policy landscape here. There are programs that are set by NYSERDA that essentially dictate what David is doing, which create the program, which creates the opportunity for David to generate electricity and sell it back to Con Edison. We administrate the program because we operate the grid. We can't do what David does. There are laws that prohibit us from transmitting or creating electricity, generating electricity. Because of a law that was passed a while back, we are not allowed to generate electricity. So what David is doing, because there's such a growing amount of development in the Bronx, which is great, but that means that there are folks that are requesting more gas accounts. That means that there are folks that are requesting more electricity accounts. So generation is great, but I like to make sure that folks don't conflate or confuse that David and Con Edison are working together. We're working in terms of in the same way that if somebody's building a high rise, we provide electricity, we provide gas. And then there's the portion where NYSERDA provides the requirements and the programming that if David and really anybody with a home that has let's say solar panels and is generating more than they use, they have an opportunity to sell that back to the grid. It's a similar program to that. So just wanted to make sure that we know that there's a division here. There are no batteries. David is right. And that's really the extent of our relationship with David and the work that he does in other fuel cell and generation type of companies. In terms of the credits in the programs, that's definitely a conversation that we can work to develop. I think the community benefit that David and his team are providing is obviously beneficial. So I'm definitely willing to connect with folks on our team that help administrate that program. But if you have any questions, let me know. If I can't answer them here, I can definitely find somebody who can answer those questions for you.
Well, I do think that'd be helpful, Benny, at some point if we connect even with the community board for about creating this program. I mean, I could share in the chat that there's a website called gocdg.com. If people are on their phone or their computers now, you could type in gocdg.com. So that's our website where we actually get customers to sign on for credits. So by looking at that website, what we do is we are going to create a custom URL link for it'll be CB4. So it'll be gocdg.com/CB4. And then anyone within Community Board 4 would use that link and sign up. And as I mentioned, I met with some people personally at the site. If you have friends or relatives in different boroughs of New York City or even parts of Westchester, you could share the link with them as well. But Benny, I think that might be helpful as well, just to kind of promote the program even further with the community board.
Yeah, of course. And let's definitely connect after the call. So that
okay, you got it. So I don't know
Crystal?
if
Hold on.
Hello?
No,
Can
Crystal.
you hear me?
You what are you trying to do? Oh, I thought you was gonna type.
Crystal.
Yes, I am. Sorry.
Can
Who's
you hear
next?
me?
Can
No.
who
This
is-
is Marie
Oh,
McCullough.
Marie.
I have my hands up.
So
I
we're
have
saving the
the
questions for
other
later. I'm
Just
not sure if
just
David.
mute it. Just mute.
We're
I could
saving
do a
questions for later. Everyone, David is right now presenting with his team.
So as
David
as
was
Benny had
finished.
mentioned also, so the relationship between us and Con Ed is more as though Con Ed just administers what we're doing, meets their spec. NYSERDA, Benny mentioned as well, it's the New York State Energy Research Development Agency. What they do is they administer state funds to be allocated to certain programs. In this case, the program is called Community Distributed Generation. Benny mentioned something similar to community solar. So it's the same thing. If you put a solar system on your roof, you could ultimately sell that power back to Con Ed, and Con Ed will pay you for that power as long as you share that payment with somebody else. And that's exactly what we're doing here. So we are putting out approximately $2 million a year, which will go towards be applied to any community board for Con Ed bill. And I want to also reiterate, so we do not handle the billing. It is all done by Con Ed. So you don't have to give us your credit card, your bank account, nothing. So anything you do is specific with Con Edison, we're out of the picture there. But Crystal, to your point, I mean, besides from explaining the technology, the reason behind it, which as Benny also mentioned, there is a real need as power demand goes up in the state. We need more power generation. Con Ed, under state law, is not allowed to make their own electricity. They rely on companies like us to do that. We have other projects just like this in New York City, and we plan on doing more. So we want to obviously help and educate and answer any questions you guys have. But there is a real need for power, and the shortfall is real. You can see daily, the NISO, they submit out different tweets and reports on the fear of this actually happening. I mean, obviously, we hope none of this does happen, but with the power consumption only rising, it's inevitable. So our hope is that we could deploy enough of these power generation assets quickly to avoid this happening. I mean, I could open it up now for questions. I don't know what other specifics they have, so I'll leave it to you, Crystal.
Okay, if you're ready for questions, we can begin it.
Sure.
We don't we have a representative here from DEP?
We actually have Effie from Department of Environmental Protection, yes.
Okay.
Effie,
So,
would you like to say a few words?
Hold on a second. Sorry about that. My computer's acting up. I've seen this presentation before when it was presented to CB4. DEP itself were not involved in it in any form that I'm aware of. So I'm just here to hear what the questions are, what concerns they are, things of that nature. Thank you.
Thank you, Effie. We could,
yes, Senator Serrano.
Senator, you could speak.
Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you for this presentation. Certainly learning a lot about this technology. My question has to do more with, maybe if you can, I can imagine it's a very long explanation or process, but maybe in the shortest way possible to sort of explain what chemical mechanism allows for the generation of electricity without combustion. Because it's kind of, I'm trying to think of my chemistry classes, and I'm trying to figure out what non-combustible way of creating energy.
Yep.
'Cause it sounds fascinating to me.
Yeah, fair. So me as well. I'm not an engineer, so I'm trying not to butcher this, and I could also share a link to a video to show you how it works. But if you could imagine a big box, right? So our units are approximately 7 feet tall and 20 feet long. So think of like a shipping container. So natural gas goes into a shipping container, and there's stacks. Stacks are made of metal plates. So think of a cell phone as a metal plate, literally this big. And on one side, you have a film of hydrogen. And as natural gas goes in, it mixes with the hydrogen film and oxygen, and through some sort of chemical reaction creates electricity. To the extent I could give a better explanation, I wouldn't be in my position. But like I said, I'll share a link to the technology and you get a better understanding. But that's essentially what's happening at a very, very high level. Very high
So
level.
it's got it. So it's a chemical reaction. Now, is there any byproduct from that chemical reaction? I know you mentioned steam and
Yep.
water, but I can imagine that there are volatile compounds within natural gas. How is that mitigated, or does that sort of cancel itself out on a molecular level when all of this sort of chain reaction of chemicals happen?
Correct. Yeah, they cancel themselves out. You're essentially left with a stream of water vapor with zero SOx and a de minimis amount of NOx and CO2, which is why under federal law it is considered clean energy. So they get the same federal ITC as solar, as wind, and nuclear. So because there is no emission factor really, they're getting that same clean energy factor.
And what is SOTS?
SOx stands for, oh God, I should know. Mike, what does SOx stand for?
Sulfur oxides. So
Yeah.
it'd be bad stuff that would be in fuels that would be rich in that. Certainly gas, oil, and like coal have very higher levels of SOx. So
Right.
it's
It's
very
like a boil. Yeah. Like when you burn in a boiler gas or diesel, you're going to see NOx and SOx levels.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
The big thing that also, David, just the carbon monoxide, which obviously would be in a combustion process, right? Due to incomplete combustion, we don't have this. And if you look at asthma and all those conditions, those are carbon monoxide is something that would be a big contributor. That comes from like tailpipes of cars, boilers, things that do burn. So this technology doesn't have that. So I'll turn it back over to David. That's certainly an important distinction as well.
a quick question then. I mean, those of us, all of all of us elected officials, we don't live far from this, right? So we're asking, as community members and certainly very interested in learning what this all means. New technology obviously comes with its own set of questions. So there's no toxic byproducts from that chemical reaction that go forward, correct?
Correct.
So if this fuel cell technology sort of does this without burning anything and without creating carbon and without creating other types of pollutants, then why are there still smokestacks anywhere? Like, why is it that it can't be scaled to that level and it only works on a small scale?
Yes, great question. So you're hearing more and more about, I don't know if you heard that a company called Bloom Energy, but um, the data center world now is exploded with only fuel cells. The difference when you look in Astoria or Long Island City and you look at those Ravenwoods, those giant stacks, those are 1960, 1970 vintage, gas turbines. Those, that technology is extremely cost competitive, right? It's very cheap compared to a fuel cell, which is very expensive. So you pay a premium to get a product that's going to have almost zero emission factor. So that is a difference why you're not seeing, 25 acres plus of these units. You're seeing them in smaller batches. But now, as you hear the data center world kicking up, the cost of producing these pieces of equipment comes down. So it's much, much, much more competitive now. So you're going to see more and more fuel cells being deployed on a, call it module level, as well as a much more distributed level. But yeah, the price to compete against those old vintage technologies is what really causes those older units to be seen more than our units.
And so the power, the energy would be generated there, would not be stored there.
No,
It would be transmitted there through lines. Any concerns with electromagnetic? Like, I asked this because there's other big high power lines that are separate issue coming from upstate New York and
yeah,
coming through communities. And as a parent, I think about like our kids susceptible to high, I don't want to say radiation, but the electromagnetic uh, uh, energy that comes off high power lines. Is there any electromagnetic radiation, for lack of a better term, coming out of here?
zero. I mean, this is a de minimis, unfortunately, it's a de minimis amount of power. I wish it were more. You're thinking of like the Chippy line coming from Quebec down. No, those are, high tension power lines. This is a much smaller line that connects to a telephone, essentially a pole underground, because obviously we don't have anything above ground in the Bronx. But no, there is no sensitivity to anything of that nature at all. This is a much, much smaller project.
Right.
We use less power. We're going to produce less power than some buildings consume.
Got it. And the virtually no emissions, but is there a small amount of something, like a 1% of something that is emitted in all of these processes?
Yeah, there is a point. I think I have the number. Point. Hold on one second. It's 0.02 tons of CO2 a year. 0.02. So it's versus, you're talking about, 10,000 tons from a boiler.
Got it. All right. Well, I'm sorry I rambled with so many questions. I'll circle back if I have any other
No, no.
questions, or I'll call you. But thank you so much
Yeah,
for
please.
answering.
By any time, please.
Thanks.
All right, David, are you ready to just welcome everyone's questions?
Yep, of course.
We go
Okay.
to Tyreek first.
Okay,
You gotta unmute.
you're
Tyreek.
muted.
Hey folks, how you doing? Tariq is our Chief of Staff, Council Member Stevens. Give me one moment. Yes, so my question really, the presentation was great. Thank you. Thank you for all the information. My real question is around delivery costs, because I know you guys are going to be storing the energy and essentially kind of going to buy back from you. But the energy has to be transferred back, and I'm sure that's going to come at a price. And is that price being passed on to the customers, essentially, is what I'm asking? Because I do know what a lot of with the third party groups, I think I got involved in one. We were experiencing way higher delivery costs for some of the gas and the electric that we were receiving, which resulted in a higher bill than what it would have been before. The energy was down, the energy cost was down, but the cost to deliver the energy was up. So that was my question.
Fair enough. Just two things. One, you mentioned the word storage. Just make sure that we don't store anything on site. So what we produce is immediately sent to the grid. Just want to make sure everyone knows there's no storage of anything. Two is, so This is a different program than what it sounds like you had in the past was with an ESCO, where a third party, call it like a Direct Energy or a Constellation Energy, would say, hey, we could buy your electricity at a price cheaper than Con Ed. And that sounded great, but your delivery price went up. So this has no impact on your delivery price. This has no impact on your power price either. So the way this works is we put power onto the grid, and Con Ed says, okay, this is worth $1. Thanks for your power because we need it. But in order to give you the $1, I'm only going to give you 90 cents, David, and I'm going to give Tyreek 10 cents. And that 10 cents is going to be seen on your Con Ed bill. Not going to impact your power price. It's not going to impact your distribution costs. It's going to be a straight line credit of 10 cents on your bill. So if your bill was $100, right? Or I should say if your bill was, 20 cents, it's now only 10 cents, right? Because you're getting that free credit. So it has zero impact. So the purchase of power is not going to impact your distribution or your electricity price because you're not buying anything from us. All we're doing is allocating free money to your Con Ed bill. At the same time, you could still work with a third party ESCO, but we have zero impact with there. So we're not contracting with you. We're not selling you anything. We're just allocating $1 to your Con Ed bill that we would have otherwise given to somebody else. I hope that it's a kind of a tricky program to understand, but I hope that I did the best I could there.
Okay, I think we can go to stack. Natasha and Crystal.
Yes, I'm going to the first question from Miss Taisha Johnson. She asks, what happens if the program is no longer funded next year?
So good question. The program is committed for 25 years. So we are contracted for 25 years with the state, being NYSERDA, for this program. So as long as, myself and Ori own this project, which we expect to for the next 25 years, this money will be available. Period. End of story. Right? We have investments into this project, so we would never let it go, obviously. So, this is here for the long haul for everyone to receive the savings.
Okay. Next question. Thank you, David. Next question is from Ms. Reese Brown. I'm gonna pick one of your questions so that everyone is able to have a chance. Let's go with the first one. Specify which approvals Dakota have obtained from FDNY. Do those approvals include the evaluation of the proximity of the schools and the densely residential population?
Yeah, we have every permit FDNY DOB sourced and secured.
Did we and FDNY was invited to this call? Crystal, do you know why they're not here?
No, I did not get no response, AM.
They were on
Meaning
the
that they never responded.
So for the first one, yes. And they told me to keep them updated, which I did, but I never got a response back from Caroline or Rico.
I believe they were on the call with Leonardo and I a few months back. We have every permit you need. So, and they're all posted in the building as well if you want to swing by.
Okay, next question is from Marlene Negron. She said DEP was not involved. How was this tested or evaluated?
How is this tested or evaluated? So, I mean, the permitting process just follows both DOB and FDNY. So, I mean, we just follow the typical protocol like we've done with our other two projects. So, in terms of the evaluation process, it's just, standard mechanical, plumbing, electrical, use permits that we've secured.
Thank you, David. The next question is from one of our tenants association, Daniel Barber. Is this system prone to Legionnaire's disease?
Legionnaires.
What is
but it's not water.
The answer is no.
There's no water in this process as well, just to make sure everyone's clear. We don't use any water.
Yeah.
Zero.
The next question would be from Ms. Brown again. Has there been a direct coordination with schools administration, emergency planning, and for the residents?
There has not been any coordination. I'm more than happy to discuss. I mean, the reality is there's no flame, so there's no fear of combustion. There's a shutoff switch we have access to, on-site Con Ed has access to, FDNY has access to. We have a remote switch as well. We could discuss that, but no, there's no plan of an emergency shutdown. This is not This should never ever be an emergency situation because again, there's no combustion here.
And just for clarity, that nothing runs unless Con Ed says we need more energy. And the site only gives the energy and then it cuts right back off.
Yeah, so if we decide to turn the system off for whatever reason, myself and Ori want to go on vacation or we're tired, you turn the system off, it's just an empty shell. Like there's nothing in it, right? So I want to make sure everyone's clear. There's no storage. We don't store anything on site. It just sits there idle. And then we turn it back on, gas flows back to the building. That's it. But yeah, FDNY, DOB, Con Ed all have access to the shut-off switch.
Thank you, David, for that.
Of course.
The next question would be from Angie Gonzalez. Who provides oversight to ensure emissions remain less than 1%? How will the community receive confirmation of this threshold? Why should we take on that 1% emission in our community when we currently do not have to deal with it?
So I have to confirm the process. And I'll get back to you on that. Chris, you could share with the team on
Yes,
what any sort of,
definitely. All these
yeah,
questions will be shared with your
perfect.
team, and then we can send the responses back out to them.
Great. Not a problem at all.
Thank you, David.
Of course.
The next
But
question.
I just want to point out, because I'm not sure when this question was asked, but if there's more emissions coming from your boiler that heats your building, and we're talking about tens of thousands from the boiler. I don't know how that works, asking how do we get less than 1% from this company?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is your boilers are going to be far more emission toxic than we would. And again, there's fuel cells all throughout New York City. Like I mentioned, SUNY Downstate Medical Center, they're all over the place. The Verizon building has one in Brooklyn. You're hearing more and more pop up because again, they become more cost competitive. I just don't know if there's a compliance for annual reporting. I mean, the spec sheet of the technology tells you exactly what it's going to emit based on the system size. So it's a pretty straightforward calculation. Whereas a boiler, you could be consuming oil number 2, 4, 6. That varies your emission profile. And obviously the amount of therms and gas you consume as well. So yeah, to Mrs. Jackson's point, I really don't know how we would able to do that, but I have no problem finding out.
Thank you, David.
Of course.
Our next question would be from Edward Barber. Why is there not a specialist here to advise the community of all what David Matt says it to be true? We hear him, but we need confirmation of what they are saying. His second question to it is, who and where is that person? Con Ed is in the business with Matt. We need to hear from a neutral party, please. And thank you.
So as Benny mentioned, Con Ed's not in the business with us, where there's no partnership there at all. That's first and foremost. Susan, who's also on the call, I mean, I'm not going to put her on the spot, but she's a third party through a company called Atkins Realis. They're one of the largest consulting firms in the country. You could look them up. We were required to hire them through our financiers to make sure that we are in compliance with everything that we're saying here, obviously. But again, I don't know who else you would need. I mean, I'll do whatever you need in terms of giving information. But I don't know how much more I could do in terms of helping, showing that we're saying is truthful.
Thank you, David. I'm gonna put the questions on the chat on hold because we do have constituents here in our office who also have questions. So I'm going to give them the space for it.
May I have a question to ask?
Thank
Yes,
you.
I'd like to know if there are any long-term side effects
Mm-hmm.
or any health issues that any studies been done to show
Yeah.
that has anyone ever been like sick, gotten sick, or maybe have to monitor because of this type of energy in their community?
Never. Like I said, fuel cells have been around since 1960. They're in space shuttles, they're in submarines where people work, sleep, live. No, there is no issues with this technology at all. Remember, we're not burning anything. So I want to make super clear. If we were burning and combusting, if you were sleeping next to a gas pipe of a car that's running 24/7, there 1000% will be long-term impacts. We are doing nothing of the sort.
But it's electricity, it's like in the air, right?
No, but it's.
No, so we're producing electricity like any other power plant would produce electricity, but that goes underground. through the wires that then get sent up to the building for you to consume and, turn your lights on and charge your cell phones. But that's just electricity is electricity, whether it's, we're producing it, a solar panel's producing it, hydrogen's being produced, windmill, electricity is electricity. So that's not the concern there. And we need more electricity, unfortunately.
Why is it that these type of projects are not, the community is not informed of these projects before they are put in place? That's the first part of my question.
Well, he went to see before.
How come we're not informed about these type of projects before they in the community? Why we don't have that type of information coming to us first before it's approved by whomever for it to be coming to the community, and then why this community? And who approved it?
And let me just piggyback off something. Last night, a group of us were at the community board for community meeting. They insisted last night that they had nothing to do with this.
I know.
Nothing to do with this project. It's about 4 or 5 of us in this room at this moment who was at the community board's meeting, and they denied having anything to do with this.
Well, let me just pause everybody. Community Board 4 is on this call. You have Leonardo on here, you have Miss Beverly Bond on here. They're here. What David is saying is that they presented at Community Board 4. The information was given there. So they don't, Community Board 4 doesn't have to approve the project.
On the permits outside too.
Say that again.
They have Community Board 4, okay, board number on the papers on that.
Right, because that's where the project sits. The project lives inside of Community Board 4.
Okay, and we understand.
Can I get a moment real quick? I'm so sorry. Hey, Leo, you can speak, Leo.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Leonardo Coelho, District Manager, Community Board 4. For those of you that were there yesterday at our meeting, I will repeat what was said. This project did not have to come before the board for any type of approval of anything. The only communication the community board had with this organization is when the community brought the concerns to the community board. And the community board were the ones that started the amplification of the voice of the community, saying that they did not want that there. That was the role of the community board. We reached out to Doroga for a presentation because the community board executive members wanted to hear the information of what was going on. The community board executive board took a motion and said they are against this location. We then convened a meeting with elected officials and Doroga in order to start the communication of the community saying they do not want this location here. So again, I repeat, this organization never came and did not have to come before the community board. And we were the ones that initiated the conversation about the community not wanting this location there.
Thank you for that, Leo.
We appreciate that, but I'm just saying, and they can verify, Community Board 4 is all over those papers outside. That's all we're saying. That's all we're saying.
Yeah, and just to reiterate what Mrs. Jackson said, so we have to put Community Board 4 based on the permits because that's where it's located. So that's a DOB permit. We don't create those permits. That's literally a DOB, Department of Buildings permit, that's going to highlight the location. So that's all it's saying. It's not saying that we've communicated with you. All it's saying is that the project itself and these permits are tied to this location. If we were tied to, somewhere 20 blocks north, it would be a different community board. So I just wanted to highlight that.
And to say that, hold on one second, just a reminder that city council, the city zoning didn't require them to have to come to the community board for approval. Sorry, I'm on a highway, so forgive me if it's shaky.
So who exactly approved it? Somewhere in Community Board 4, someone had to approve it. So
no, that's what he's saying. They did not have to come to the community board for approval.
Okay.
That's what's being said right now.
How can we find out, and how can we find out who approved the Draco?
That they don't need approved.
Right, how can we find that out? Because we really are concerned.
What's the question? I'm sorry.
I want to know, how can we find out who gave you the approval to put your company here and in our neighborhood that we don't want?
So it's a use approval, right? So it's the New York City Department of Buildings that, we have use approval to put this use in the building. That's really all it is. And if I didn't come sooner, then I do apologize. And I had spoken to Leonardo in the community board and I helped answer any questions. I'll do it again now. I'll do it. And I forget your name is right there, but I think you have my cell phone. I have no problem speaking 24/7, 365. If you need anything, you call me, you text me. We want to be a good neighbor, right? So, I mean, I'm trying to answer every question. There's no harmful emissions.
No, I don't, yeah. The problem is this is a very challenged area of the Bronx because we in the community, we've had some problems with schools that were put up in the past a number of years ago. Do you guys remember the years?
Yeah.
And it was on toxic land and people were getting sick. There's a very high area where people have asthma, bronchitis, cancer, and death. And so by you putting this gas chamber tank thing, it just ignites, it just makes things worse. We've calmed things down.
It's not a gas chamber, so what we're not gonna do, hold on.
All right.
It could feel like whatever you want to feel like, but what we're gonna do is speak facts, and we're gonna talk on this call.
Okay.
So we don't get to just say whatever we want here.
Absolutely we can, Chantel, and I'm sorry if you don't agree with that.
No, not on my virtual meeting.
Okay,
Y'all can do that on your own meeting.
You're being very.
But if you're gonna speak factually.
Not professional. I'm not saying anything wrong. Listen, if you're going to put a monitor on.
All right, so mute that, and then we go to the rest of the call.
Can we please get back? I'm sorry. Leslie.
What's the next question?
Leslie has her hand raised.
All right.
Hi.
How are you,
Thank
Leslie?
Good. How are you? Nice to
Thank you
meet
for
you.
joining us.
Of course. I just wanted to say one, thank you for the presentation and for giving us that overview. Two, I just wanted to say that what we're talking about with the lack of communication and that we didn't hear about this is exactly what we don't want to happen again. We understand that what we're trying to do is to try to improve energy, and we get that. Bye, thank you so much. But the fact that the Bronx keeps getting investments that we didn't ask for, and in the long run, eventually harm our communities without our understanding of it, that's where we go wrong every single time. That's why we have such high asthma rates. That's why we need an energy improvement in the first place. And we're not negating the fact that we need it. We're just saying, please let us know. Please communicate with us. I am from the Point CDC. I am an environmental justice nonprofit organization in Hunts Point. So we serve the South Bronx. We know about energy. Our work is to shut down power plants. So when we hear a fuel cell power plant is coming in as residential area in the middle of the Bronx, and it's already being built out, and it's happening June 1st, and Chantel Jackson's often had to organize something because you guys did it, that's what we don't want to see again. And as community partners, we want to say there's South Bronx Unite, there's Nos Quedamos, there's the Point CDC, there's YMPJ, all environmental justice organizations that you could have contacted, and we would have done the legwork for you to get you that information out into our communities. Now we're here to say, hey, yes, we do want an improvement of air quality, we do want an improvement of energy affordability, but we can't do that if you guys aren't supporting us and if you guys aren't keeping us updated. So what I'll just say is, moving forward, please let us know what's happening. Please let us know what your timeline is. Please let us know how this is going to impact our community on a quarterly basis.
Yep.
So yeah, I'll leave it there.
That was very well spoken, Leslie. Truly, I appreciate that. And 1000%. I will coordinate with you moving forward. And I apologize that this wasn't done, a while ago. I didn't even think twice about it. We got the use approval and we just said, we're going to build this. And we've done that everywhere else in parts of Staten Island where it's a corner of a residential building, and we just move forward. I was naive to think that I shouldn't have reached out, and I do appreciate what you just said. And from now on, you will have my direct information, my cell phone, and any question you have 24/7, you will have answers immediately.
Thank you for that,
I'm a
David.
good neighbor. I'm a transparent neighbor. I'm not going anywhere. You can see me. I have my two boys in the background running amok. And we're here to help, I promise. Only help.
Thank
And
you.
I will say
Appreciate
that
it.
part of the issue is that our zoning didn't require this to have any approval. So that's something that we could talk through with our city council members, our mayor, to see like what approvals should be required when we're getting new projects that we just don't know and understand. But yeah, this is bigger than this call though.
Are there any more
Can you go through the
Letitia,
questions?
sorry, will
Yeah,
the
5,
unit
6.
/ building require on-site on 24-hour security for safety purposes in case something unforeseen happens?
Yes, 24/7 interior, exterior cameras, heat sensors, everything you can imagine under the sun. We are fully insured. Insurance requires it. Our lenders require it. The city requires it. The state requires it. We have everything you can ever imagine. And the goal is obviously to keep the neighborhood clean. Obviously, there's been a lot of trash buildup in front of our property. We have people there twice a week now going to clean that up. We have cameras being installed as well. So yes, I mean, 100%.
Thank you for that, David. The next question, June, what's the worst case scenario for these fuel cells? If combustion isn't a risk, what other types of failures or hazards could occur?
The only other failure or potential hazard would be is they don't work and then we lose our money. That's really it. I mean, I want to harp on this, and I know you want to have an expert on the call, but that is what could happen. There's no fire, there's no flame, so it can't combust. Either it works or it doesn't work. If it doesn't work, then myself and my partner are out a lot of money. If it works, there's power on the grid, and there's $2 million to be allocated to every single person on this phone call on an annual basis. So in the next 25 years, there'll be money, free money allocated to your Con Ed bill. And when you get it, I want you to call me and tell me that it worked.
Can I just speak to the expert part? We did invite the chair of environment, right, Crystal?
Yes, we did, AM.
Okay, so New York State Assembly and Senate, we both have chair of environment, and they were invited on this call. They didn't make it, but we do have another call that's going to happen because we have a battery storage coming to our district. And so they will be invited to that call, and hopefully during that call, we can have the same conversation with them around having an expert that has nothing to do with this project talk to us about clean energy. I hope that is sufficient for everyone.
You go ahead, Senator Serrano.
Thank you. And first of all, I just want to say thank you to Assemblymember Jackson and her wonderful team for putting this really informative session together. My question is about the gas coming into the facility. You know, so we often hear about unfortunate gas explosions. We had one in Mitchell Houses. We've had them in East Harlem. And with gas coming in, will there be monitors for a potential gas leak where gas can build up internally in a building and start, you know, that could be a big problem, explosion problem. And will there be any risk of gas fumes coming from this facility?
So all good questions. The answer is yes. There's full protection. Con Ed requires protection. The DOB requires protection. The FDNY requires protection. I don't know if Michael Scarano is on the phone, but if he is,
Yeah, the fuel cell manufacturer also requires monitoring, and there's a separate valve inside the building as well that will turn the gas off going to the units. And again, everything is fully welded, pressure tested, inspected, all the piping's x-rayed. There's a lot of safety protocols that definitely goes into the gas. And this is definitely different than the projects you talked about where somebody tampered with gas lines and those type of things. This is certainly everything that's basically being done per code, per Department of Building Code, per plumbing code, and you know, with all the protections in place from the security systems and the monitoring that we have in order to basically stop the flow of gas at the entrance to the building in order to do that.
And a quick question: those gas lines, are they the responsibility of Con Edison, or are they are your responsibility? Like, where is it with the boundary of Con Edison's responsibility and then yours in terms of the actual gas being like entering into the fuel cell?
So Con Ed brings the gas to the corner of the street, and then there's a connection point kind of like at our building. And then everything inside is obviously our responsibility, but it's monitored via Con Ed. So we
Yeah, but
have the control. Yeah, you go, Mike.
technically, David, Con Ed has responsibility and jurisdiction up to the meter. So Con Ed brings the service into the building and takes it to the meter. And obviously from that point forward, it's all under us. So certainly, Con Ed is going to do a final inspection of the building before we actually start up. But that'll only occur after we've had a Department of Building Plumbing Division inspection and receive final authorization of the work. And certainly we are complying with everything that Con Edison does there. So I mean, if the Con Ed rep has anything else to add, but certainly.
Yeah, Benny, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, Michael, you hit the nail on the head. We're responsible for anything up until the head of service. However, if there's a new building or new construction like the one that David and his team has, there are inspections, right? So they're national. We don't pressurize a building unless we think it's safe. And it's a very rigid process. It takes a long time if folks aren't compliant. So there are definitely a lot of safety protocols that go into what we say is energizing a building.
Got it. So it's a sealed system. There's no burping of gas or anything like that from vents or anything like that. It's a sealed gas system. Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And Con Edison wants the facility to be up and running by when?
I mean, I may have a different answer than Benny. And we're hoping by June 1. I mean, the goal would have been to have it in March, but we're trying to get things done as quick as we can. But we're trying to meet the summer demand. So call it like July 4th when you're going to see a real spike in power needs. So if we can get it up by June, that'd be fantastic for everyone's sake. And obviously everyone's bill is going to be the highest in the summertime. So if we can get the credits allocated starting, call it June, it's going to be a win for us all as well.
Thank you, David. AM, Marilyn asks, when is the battery storage coming?
So remember, very
that's a
busy.
different conversation.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
so sorry.
Very different conversation, but because I brought it up, we already have one on Brook Avenue, and I'm hearing I forgot the second location, but trust me, I will give you guys more than enough notice. Everyone who's registered will get that information ASAP, and that is Community Board 3, it'll be Community Board 2 and 3, not 4.
Thank you, AM. So I'm gonna give the place right back to my colleague Naya. They have a few questions in the room.
Okay.
So keep here with us. Thank you.
I have a question. We had a lot of fires going on in the Bronx recently. Say, God forbid, if there was to be a fire and it affected that area, what would be the worst case scenario? What would we have to be, worried about?
We turn the system off. So remember, we're enclosed inside a building. If there's a fire a mile away or 1,000 feet away, it's not going to impact our system no more than it's going to impact an adjacent neighbor. If there's a fire close to our building, like any other business, they're going to shut everything off as Con Ed's required to shut the gas line before we do anything. So remember, Con Ed's in the call. They'll agree. If there's a fire next to our building, they're going to shut our gas line. So again, there's no storage of gas. So there's no issue of a fear of some combustion happening.
Yeah, and there's also if the fire department gets there before we do, they shut off the gas as well.
Right.
I know somebody was there 24/7.
Excuse me, there's a large fuse box that you have upon entering in the Draco fuel cell. What is that about? It looks like a large panel with all those switch boxes, fuse boxes. Can you explain that? It looks very dangerous. There's wires exposed.
I'm not really sure. I mean, I would first say kindly that people don't walk into private property. However, that being said, I don't know exactly what's there. I mean, it could be electrical panel. I'm not sure exactly what we're discussing, but I definitely kindly advise people not to walk in.
Yeah, and I would just say that it's currently in active construction, so all that stuff would be closed up at some future date and time, right? And I think those panels are just switches for auxiliaries and things along those lines. But everything else that's also in there is, electrical panels that's sealed, and when it is operational, there'll be a closed gate. So none of that stuff would be accessible from the outside. So we wouldn't be worried about everybody working there. But probably what you saw is just the fact that we're during construction, wires are exposed, yes, and they'll be completed before the project is actually working and energized.
There are more questions in the chat. I don't think we got to.
No, AM. So I know I'm gonna take 2 more questions. The next question, Marlene, if you're able to unmute yourself, please.
Yes. You want me to read it?
Yes, love.
Okay, 1 second. Let me pull it back up. Okay. Hello, I have a concern regarding the building structure. I was parking in that parking lot when we were told to leave due to structural issues. There were big cracks in the walls, rain flowing into the building, water coming up from the floor drains when it rained heavy. The roof on that same building collapsed approximately 3 years ago as well. What are the risks of fire combustion if there's flooding, roof leaks, such collapse, sorry. The building looks bad, sorry. Will you make necessary repairs and fix the appearance of the building to make it more appealing? I live across the street, and I have a clear view of the building. I have not seen any major structural repairs done since the closure in December 2024. Thank you.
Yes. Good question. So the answer is yes. The first thing is the parking lot's closed in the second level, so there'll be no more parking there. So that's one. But two is we put up scaffolding because of the work we're doing to the building. So both interior and exterior infrastructure is being performed with this project. So yes, will I say it's going to look any prettier? We may not paint the exterior, but yes, everything will be, sealed. So it's, I guess, cleaner, no cracks. That wouldn't be visual of someone indoors, but there will be no more parking indoors. But yes, we are doing work in the building. That's why the scaffolding is up.
So just to confirm, I'm sorry, you said that no one's going to park on the top, so no repairs were done to the leaky roof. And then what
No.
about the drainage system? Because it really did float back up. Was anything done to the drainage system in that building?
So yes, we're working the roof. That's one. Two is parking will be no longer, and drainage system. There's a lot of work being done both on the second floor and the first floor. So
Yeah,
all
we
part
did a
of the
lot of
project.
drain work down below too, David. We tied all the roof drains in. We relocated them. All the roof drains that were running under the floor slab in the basement or the lowest floor were cracked and failed, and all those were replaced as part of this project. So any water that does hit on the roof or does make it on the second floor actually will go down into the drains as it's supposed to, and not flood the lower floor that we're working under.
Okay. Thank you, David, to you and your team. I'm going to take the last question before we wrap up. Leslie asks, are we planning another fuel cell town hall around the Bronx so that they can know?
I don't know if we're doing another one, if there's a need for it, because this is being recorded, so we could just share the YouTube. But we will have our secondary conversation around the battery storage. And then that we will have, hopefully, the chairs of environment from the New York State Assembly and Senate on that call.
Thank you for that, AM.
Is there any other questions in the room? Because I don't want it to end with people having questions that we didn't answer.
I know they wanna know if there's gonna be if it's gonna be an electric parking facility. I know you guys
No.
mentioned there's no car. Okay.
No parking. Yeah, I saw that in the notes. No, there's no parking, unfortunately. Maybe in a couple of years, but right now, no, there's no parking there.
What else? David stated he's built them in Staten Island, correct? You said?
Correct. Yep.
In Staten Island, yes. For Vivian. Are there any more questions?
No, none back here.
Okay, well, I want to say thank you for everyone who joined, elected officials, Senator Serrano, chief of staffs from the offices, their staffs, David and your team. Thank you so much. Thank you to Team Jackson for pulling this through. Please stay tuned to all of our events. We dropped our social medias, our newsletters. We have a couple of events coming up, so please stay in tune.
Thank you, everyone. This is Member Jackson. I finally made it to the office. David, Benny, Effie, Senator Serrano, thank you again. Trust me, we will continue these conversations.
Yep.
CB4, Leo, Miss Beverly, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, everyone.